What's up, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a Wednesday edition of the Ysn Power Hour. DJ, we're gonna try to get through this the best way that we know how. Obviously, when it comes to internet, we're still battling some demons here. So, Scotty, what's been going on? How have you been, my friend?
I'm good. I myself, every day for everybody, battle some sort of place lately, and I honestly, despite the disaster for both of us that was this Sunday, I'm feeling as good as maybe better than I've ever been
I can
all around.
appreciate that. I mean, the morale for you on Monday morning, what was it like?
I I was it was a tough loss because they win that game. They have a winning record in the division, and they're in first. And obviously, they didn't win it, so it's a losing record in the division, and they're a game below Baltimore. So it was a big swing. But I still don't think the season is dead. I think there's a long way to go. I think Baltimore's a good team. I don't think they're like indestructible. So we'll see. My dad, he thinks that's all she wrote, but that's just him being a fan. I mean, he's seeing them win. So he's yes.
Is that a situation where, I mean, how did you feel when Deshaun Watson was cleared and he said he ruled himself out, is what it sounds like?
Yeah, I almost think that like part of that is Stefanski knows if at the bare minimum, if the Browns don't make the playoffs this year, he's getting fired because they put there's way too much money invested in the roster. So I think part of that is Stefanski saying, "Hey, this one was not on me." Um, of course, he said Watson knows his body best, and he felt like he just wasn't able to go. I hate to say this and keep bringing one Sunday. He's playing over in the NFC right now because that guy would go out there if his arm was falling off, and that's Baker Mayfield.
Oh, are we back on the
So
Baker train?
I'm not saying that I'm off the Watson bandwagon, and I still think he's gonna have a really good year. I think he finally got in a rhythm in his last start against Tennessee, but it's like one of those things, man. With how big that game was, I would have liked to see him. If there was any way possible he could be out there, I think you got to be out there. But that's just me as a greedy fan
And
too.
we got some breaking news about the Steelers. Kenny Pickett wants to play, says he will suit up against the Ravens from all sources. So you got a guy that's getting paid a lot of money, Scotty, $230 million that says opponent for the AFC North lead. And then you've got a second year, and I'm not trying to listen, Kenny, pardon me, how important this game is.
I will say though, just to play devil's advocate, if we are gonna defend Deshaun Watson here and his kid and him saying, he knows his body better than anybody, I think the one caveat in this situation, what does make me feel at least somewhat okay with it is the fact that they also have a bye this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I think everybody knew that going in, and he's like, man, if I could rest it up this week, gives me an extra week, and then I'll feel that much better. Because let's face it, with the 49ers coming to town next, he better be feeling, if not 100%, damn near close to it, or the Browns, if he's like 50-60%, I mean, they're not gonna have a shot the way the Niners have played. So I will say that just to play devil's advocate, but you got no, I respect that though. As far as Pickett goes, he seems like a gamer, and it was bad for both of us. I know it was bad for you too this past week, but I feel like this Steelers Ravens game, you may think differently, but I still feel like, I'm not saying the Steelers are gonna win, but I think they're gonna be in the game. I think it's coming down to the fourth quarter. But that's just me.
It could be. I mean, it usually not a high scoring affair, but I hate to say this. He's on my fantasy team. Lamar Jackson hit a gear against the Brownies last week. I mean, you talk about the Browns defense and how just unbelievable they've been performing over the first few weeks. And Lamar Jackson, who typically doesn't have games like that against the Browns, pretty much did whatever he wanted to do against them, which scares me. If CJ Stroud can walk all over the Steelers and dog walk them down in Houston, what potentially could happen at Acrisure Stadium on Sunday? So I think that Lamar Jackson could be putting up another potential MVP type year.
So this one is in Pittsburgh. Then.
It is. Yep.
Okay, so that should help you there too. Um, I don't know that you talk about how great the Browns defense had been up to that point, but I think you could say the same almost for the. I mean, I know they got it was over pretty quickly against San Francisco, but San Francisco's done that to everybody. So I do think the Steelers defense, much like the Browns, I think both defenses, I think they still have a chance to be a top 5 defense.
The Houston Texans, Scotty. The Houston Texans.
I know, but there's to look at everybody was ready to crown the Dolphins as the best team in the AFC. Look what no one could stop them.
Whoa, no. The Broncos couldn't stop them. I understand that they were undefeated going into last week against the Bills, but here's the thing: that it's gonna shine through. It's gonna shine through. The Steelers, their defense was supposed to be carrying them and did carry them through a couple of games, got them a couple wins. One of them, of course, against Cleveland. But when you look at what the CJ Stroud looked like a Hall of Famer. And it wasn't that he was a Hall of Famer in my estimation. It was that the Steelers looked really, really bad. And the reports out of Pittsburgh are that they're not showing any heart. And I can't disagree with that. They just don't look like they wanted to play at all.
That is a concern. How much longer is are Deontay Johnson and Cam Hayward out the exact same amount? How much longer are they on the shelf?
They're just saying Deontay is supposed to be like 7-8 weeks.
Okay.
Cam's supposed to be about the same. So, but listen, neither one of those guys is changing the game. They're not. They're not single-handedly coming in. Like I talked to people last week, and it's if Nick Chubb isn't like, listen, Nick Chubb is a game changer, but he does not win you games unless it's a close game. He's not going to take you. What was the final on Sunday?
28-3. So if he's in that game, it looks a little better,
but it's not 25 points better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think some people get caught up in that. I heard the Deontay Johnson. Well, if we had Deontay Johnson, listen, if we had Deontay Johnson, maybe there's 3 more drops in the game, but there's not 3 more touchdowns to help us beat the Texans.
Well, I wanted to ask you too, without your bias going into it, because he obviously had the great play, the long touchdown against the Browns in week 2, and I think his like ceiling is through the roof. But what do you think about George Pickens so far up to this point? Do you think Tomlin? Do you think he's at least attempting to get the most out of his skill set, or do you think they're having issues with that?
Has nothing to do with Tom. And Kenny Pickett does not look comfortable. The most comfortable he's looked was against Las Vegas. Obviously, in that, not good. I don't even want to say mediocre because I think that's giving him a bone. Like, I'm not trying to be just critical of it, and I think he would tell you that. And there's a lot of people that are blaming Matt Canada. There's a lot of people that are. I mean, look at how is Kenny Pickett supposed to keep you in the running?
And I mean, not taking the way you beat us fair and square, but it's also if you didn't have the best defensive player on earth, like I don't know. It's hard to say because Watson played so bad in that game that the Steelers still could have won. But I feel like Pickett made that one play to Pickens. He did. But aside from that, he was pretty terrible against
Pickett
the Browns.
or Pickens.
Pickett was the best defensive player on earth. I'm not sure if you win that week 2.
Interesting that you call him the best defensive player on earth after all these weeks of backing up Myles Garrett.
But you read me wrong on this, DJ. Me, he's number 2. Like
not Micah Parsons.
No, not Micah. I think Myles is 2. I think defensive coordinators fear Myles Garrett and have the game plan for him.
You know who doesn't fear Myles Garrett? Anybody in Pittsburgh.
Well,
and by the way, he needs to get 3 sacks in the game in Cleveland against Pittsburgh for you to win the bet.
Well, it could happen.
It could happen, but none of them have ever been against Pittsburgh. Historically, my guy does not do well against the Steelers.
I mean, he's gotten sacks before against the Steelers.
Yes, he has. He's never had a 3-sack game.
Never 3-sack game. No. But I mean,
but if listen,
I don't necessarily think that. I'm not saying that Steelers O-line, like I haven't watched them enough to know if it's dog do, but I don't think it.
They're not good.
Exactly. You know,
they're not good, Scotty.
Still Curtin offensive line or something like that.
They're not good. They're not good at all. And I was highly, like, even as a guy that's not a Garrett fan, I was highly disappointed about how he stacked up in that game. Like, there was nothing. And the other guy, the guy on the other side of the field, and the guy on the other side of the field changed the game. Well, he and Highsmith, let's be fair. Highsmith had an outstanding game.
He's the one that returned the pick, right?
Correct.
The first play.
Yep.
So yeah, you could say he won the. You can make an. They both were outstanding, and that's why I don't like. I know we talked before the before our shows today, before we hit the air, we talked, and you said pretty much you think the Ravens are going to have a stranglehold on it. I did lose to Indy at home, and I don't think Indy's necessarily are they terrible. I'm not gonna say that, but I don't think they're a juggernaut. And another thing, I know you can't predict injuries, but I think one thing about Lamar, to me, he's clearly a top 10, maybe top 7 quarterback when he's on the field. But it's been a while since he's played a full season. So I'm kind of still in wait and see
Are you
mode on
waiting and
him.
seeing, or are you hoping and praying? There's a difference.
It's a mix. To be totally honest, still at this point, more wait and see than hope and pray. There's a little hope and pray in there, but I think it's still early enough to we still got what 12 weeks of the season left.
Yep.
It's still early enough to be in wait and see mode.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said you wanted to bring a topic to the table today about trash talking. Take me through it.
Yeah. So on the show, and I've been wanting to get your thoughts on it for a long time. We talked about trash talking and if there's a line you can cross. And basically, I was telling you off the air, Anthony said last week he does think there's a line, but basically he thinks like you have to do like talk an awful lot of trash to cross that line. But what kind of was um the catalyst of why I brought up the topic? It was the Lou Holtz Ryan day. And I wanted to know from you, DJ, and let me preface this by saying I am a Buckeye fan, but you made a comment a couple weeks back, and I have to agree with you. You said Buckeye fans and Browns fans get real arrogant real quick. And I agree with you on that. But I think it happens for different reasons. I think Browns fans get arrogant real quick because if they see a glimmer of hope, like they did to start the year or like they did against Tennessee, they think this is finally going to catapult us. And I think Buckeye fans, I just think it's different because they've been spoiled and they're in the national title conversation every year, and it's one of those things. I think Trussell changed a lot when he took the job in the early 2000s and started beating Michigan every year at Ohio State. But anyway, getting back to the topic, what was your take on the whole Ryan Day Lou Holtz thing, and do you feel like there's a lot of trash talking in sports?
Yeah, I think there's always a line. I got to be honest. I'm not on either side. Like I think an awful lot of Lou Holtz. I really do, and I think he's earned the right to say the things that he wants to, especially as a an analyst. You know what I mean? That's basically what he is now. And somebody, the context is where it's interesting because I still haven't seen the other side of that tape where who's asking him a question. Did he just come out blatantly and say, that Ohio State's soft or whatever direct correlation he had, or was somebody needling him a little bit and talking about it? Because listen, at the end of the day, Notre Dame fans are just as arrogant as Ohio State fans. I think that's same with Alabama fans. Same with, for some reason, same with like Auburn fans. I've got no problem with you rooting for your team if you're a fan. Lou Holtz right now is a glorified fan, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're a fan, you can say whatever you want, right? Because you're a fanatic. That's what it's short for. You can back your team. You can talk about it, good, bad, indifferent, right? Of a team. You should not be gloating on national television. You should not be pumping your chest after a win and saying, "Where's Lou Holtz? Where's this guy? Where's?" If that's what if you are Ohio State and you haven't beaten Michigan in the last 2 years, and you need a 70-some-year-old man to tell you that you're soft and to validate that by going on and barely beating a team that had 10 guys on the field, and then you hop on the microphone, which was premeditated 100%, and you talk about it's Ohio versus the world. Well, some of us in Ohio don't appreciate what you bring into the table, because the only thing that matters, Ohio versus everybody, Ohio versus the world, is when you beat that team up north. That's the only thing that matters. That's what keeps jobs and loses jobs. So you can beat Notre Dame all you want, right? Or you can lose to Notre Dame all you want, for that matter, and you're probably not going to be affected. The classy dude was on the other sideline, and Coach Freeman. That was the guy that everybody should be talking about. That's the guy whose quarterback is waiting for players in the medical tent for them to come out to make sure they're okay. That's the kind of guy that you want leading your son, your daughter, whoever it is. Not the guy, Scotty, that's shouting at a 70-year-old man because where's Lou Holtz?
Well, and I just my humble opinion, DJ.
Sure.
Like, I'm a State fan, but I'm not I'm irritated kind of by the fan base and even being a fan, because I just feel like they get just the cockiness sometimes is just, especially since the whole Trussell fiasco, and me and you both agree that they screwed Trussell.
Yeah.
And I think Urban Meyer was a really good college football coach. I just don't see Urban Meyer as just I thought he was same level cocky as Ryan. I
Urban Meyer wouldn't say anything like that. And listen, I'm not an Urban Meyer fan. Jim Tressel made that institution what it is today. Ohio State continues to disrespect Jim Tressel and anything that he brought to the table, even though Coach Tressel laid on that sword. I mean, plain as day, he laid on that sword for his student athletes. He laid on that sword for the university. There could have been a lot more things that happened to Ohio State if it wasn't for Jim Tressel. And to be quite honest, with everybody, and Ohio State fans included, if Jim Tressel doesn't take that job, Ohio State is not Ohio State that you know today. They're just not. And it's not like I dislike Ryan Day. I'm okay with Ryan Day, what he does on the sidelines. Great recruiter, all that stuff. But I've heard this before, John Cooper 2.0, right? Great recruiter, can't get the guys to buy in to go get that national championship, to beat Michigan, to do all the things that he's supposed to be doing, right? Those are things that he should be taking pride in. There's one game that matters, Scotty, and we all know this. As a former Ohio State fan and as a Ohio State fan, what's the one game? If you go 1-11, who's that game have to be?
Michigan.
Has to be Michigan.
And I know it's a high bar because, Trussell only lost once. He played Michigan a decade or slightly over a decade, only lost one time, and pretty much dominated every game they won. Urban Meyer, smaller sample size, but he didn't lose once to Michigan. So Ryan Day already lost to Michigan more than Trussell and Urban Meyer combined. and I know what, like you said, it's a, you know, good for Ohio State. They beat Notre Dame. That's a nice win. That's a signature. If Ohio State goes out and they should run the table up into the Michigan game, but
You don't
if
think
they,
Penn?
I think Penn State has a shot, yeah, but with Ohio State's receivers, I still expect Ohio State to win that game. Um, but if they go to the big house again and they lose to Michigan, let alone get embarrassed again like they did really the last 2 years, that there's the jizz and how many games he's won at this point, and the fact that he's been to the college football playoff, there's going to be people calling for his head. I mean, there was last year, the fan base last year after the game when Urban Meyer was sports, they were chanting, "We want Urban." So
Yeah,
that's just the nature of the beast at Ohio State.
when something's going bad for a quarterback on the field, the most popular person on the field is who? The
backup quarterback.
Until the backup quarterback gets in. And
taking anything from him, he did a great job. But honestly, DJ and his team are well documented. The one roster when they had Zeke Elliott and they lost, been 1-1, but won even more. And I think to, you know, talk on as far as Trussell goes, he did with not always I'm not saying Trussell was an outstanding. They always had really good defenses, maybe better defenses than some a recruiting perspective and a 4 and 5 star. I thought he brought in more talent in it. Times kind of underachieved with it, but that's just called out uh, a former coach. Actually, they probably get some sort of I think
if you're gonna be the bully and act like the bully and act like the tough guy and the guy that never gets beat, and you should always be there, right? Don't ever play that victim. Don't ever play that victim, because you want to stand there and pound your chest and look strong and feel strong. That I know doesn't act like that, right? The Ohio that I know, the people that are hardworking people, they're not going to tell you about it. They're going to show you about it. And listen, if you've got a problem with anybody talking about you, you better be hoisting a trophy. And the last time I checked, if you beat Notre Dame anytime in the last 60 years, you're not hoisting anything.
No, they beat Notre Dame handily last year.
I'm sorry. There's going to be ramifications and consequences for those actions, but yet everybody looks to Ryan Day and they want to rally around that. And I'm just not I'm not here for it. I'm not. Would it get me fired up? Listen, I've got my problems with Mike Tomlin. Tomlin sits there and he will own victories and he will own defeats, but he never sits there and goes disrespects an opponent, disrespects a legendary coach, anything like that. That's the trash talking should be on the field. The coaches should not be doing the trash talking. Agree or disagree?
I agree with that. And even as much of and you wear the shirt all the time, the winning in Cleveland plays in Pittsburgh.
I wear it all the time. I've worn it like 2 times in the last 3 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, all the times I'm overstating it, but you've worn it enough for me to, for it to lock into me. But even during all those automatic wins when Roethlisberger, like, I never remember Mike Tomlin, talking about the Browns and saying, "Oh, this is gonna be an automatic win," like they're scrubs, like bashing, the fan base or anything like that. So I do think that trash talking is more for the players
and the fans.
And Lou, yeah, Ohio State came out victorious, and you could say it's, who knows what it's gonna catapult them to, but the facts are that Lou Holtz didn't say anything that honestly hasn't been true these last. I mean, in the games, the big games, the marquee games, Ohio State and out physical a lot of those games.
So let me tie this up with a bow for you, Scotty. The one thing that I've learned a lot about coaches, and especially on the big stage, is that great coaches understand that it takes takes years to build a Ryan Day ruined his reputation in a lot of people's eyes by taking that moment and instead of glorifying his opponent that they just defeated and making their win a little bit sweeter, right? About you're a stellar athlete. Talk about your line. Fielders, things that need. You don't give credit to yourself. You don't draw attention to yourself. You draw attention to others, and by doing that, you and Day opportunity to do that, and he failed. Now, did emotions get the best of him? Probably, right? Did he have every right to say what he did? He did. Should he have said what he did? He shouldn't have. Great leaders lead by understanding that, again, it takes years and decades to build a reputation, and it takes moments to ruin it. That's why I'm not a Ryan Day fan from here on out. And I'm not sure there's anything that he could do. Not that he needs me, but not that anything that he can do to ever make me look at him and say, man, that guy right there, that's an impeccable leader.
And it was almost like when he was saying it, TJ, it was almost like, to me, like it was almost desperate, like I'm doing all I can to save my neck here. Like it was more, to me, it was more about him than about the team and about fight against Holtz.
There's T-shirts out there that say "Where's Lou?" and that's exactly what Ryan Day said. There's T-shirts out there for Jim Tressel that look like sweater vests, right? There's T-shirts with his infamous saying. What's the most famous thing that Jim Tressel's ever said to your recollection? There's 310 days until we beat the team in Ann Arbor, right?
Yeah.
Would you much rather have "Where's Lou?" or there's 310 days? What fires you up more?
Without hesitation, there's 310 days.
What it's like to be a leader, because everybody wants to be one, right? They don't want to put in the work a lot of times to what it takes to be a leader. They don't want to make the sacrifices. And I'm not saying that Ryan Day didn't make sacrifices. What I'm saying is he's got to get better on the big stage of knowing who to point to and give credit towards. I give credit to Coach Freeman on the other side. I had the distinct pleasure of meeting him. He impressed me then. He impressed me on that game day. You know what I mean? And then you see what his players are doing. The quarterback, after was it Duke? They just played last week. He waited. He did an interview. Talked about he's going to make sure that the quarterback's all right. The quarterback comes out of the tent with crutches, and the Notre Dame quarterback sits there and talks to him.
Yeah,
it's incredible to me. That's leadership, because leaders create more leaders and not followers.
I definitely and I don't like, again, Brian Day, I don't have anything against them personally. I've been kind of more neutral on Ryan Day, but I thought he was getting very premature, considering they beat Notre Dame even more convincingly last year. Granted, I know it was at home, so the home games, it's always, you're going to have a better chance with that home crowd. Michigan, and I mean, nothing really shows me, even in that win, Ohio State is still out. They haven't showed me this year yet that they're one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country. That's going to make or break Ryan Day. I mean, he loses to Michigan again, it's going to be an ugly scene for him. Ohio State could win their game up until then, but if they lose, it's all irrelevant.
It's a long way back to Columbus. Yes, sir. All right, Scotty, it is time for the Joe Dickey Electric. What's Your Spark? Presented by Joe Dickey Electric. Anything commercial, residential, industrial, anything electrical, give Dickey Electric a call or go to DickeyElectric.com. All right, big fella, what do you got today?
Today, my spark, it goes back a couple weeks since we last saw each other in person, because last week I did the show from home. You had meetings going on, so I wasn't here at the headquarters at the athletics complex. But I wanted to say, just from a sports fan perspective, a couple Monday nights ago, it was one of the toughest nights for me that I had to witness in a while, with Nick Chubb going down. And I know you've experienced it too, with Roethlisberger going down a few years back, and TJ Watt went out for a substantial amount of time last year. So that was really tough. But what wasn't tough is we don't often get to hang out outside of the workplace. And what I really loved was just the fellowship we had and hanging out. And I know I've gone happy on TJ, but I can't. And I know it's redundant, but I can't reiterate this enough. I can never say it enough. I'm so grateful that you took the chance on me that you did a few years back, and it's going on 5 years now. I've been with YSN, and um, that night altogether, the Chubb injury was a blow, but altogether it was one of the funnest nights I had out in a really long time. So
Awesome.
That's my spark.
Well, I'm glad. I'll keep mine nice and short. It is bundle up, ladies and gentlemen, because after Friday, it is going to be winter weather coming at us. According to Storm Tracker 21, it drops down to like 40 degrees overnight. So enjoy the next couple of days. 82 today is the high. 82 tomorrow is the high. Friday is supposed to be beautiful as well. And then Saturday, it's time for some football weather right here in Northeast Ohio. That's going to do it for our show. Thanks, as always, to my good friend and pal and my confidant, Mr. Scotty Mincher. Thanks to Damian Stone. Thanks to everybody. Appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow right here on the YSN Power Hour. Peace. YSN,